Because in 1938, a man took off from New York, headed for California, and somehow landed in Ireland. Not crashed, not lost at sea, Ireland. And when he climbed out of the airplane, he calmly said, "I must have flown the wrong way." Most stories have another side. This one's just a little stranger. I'm Bill, and this is Buffalo Airpark. Let's dive in. Before he was known as Wrong Way Corrigan, he was just another mechanic with a dream. Douglas Corrigan was born in 1907 in Galveston, Texas. Like a lot of young men in the early days of aviation, all it took was one ride in a biplane, and he was hooked. He eventually made his way to California and landed a job as a mechanic with Ryan Aeronautical. And that's where things get interesting. Because Corrigan didn't just work on airplanes, he helped build one of the most famous aircraft in history, the Spirit of St. Louis. He worked on the wing, the fuel system, the instrument panel, and when Charles Lindbergh took off for New York, Corrigan was the one who pulled the chocks. He watched that airplane disappear into the sky, and like a lot of people in the moment, he decided, I want to do that too. There was just one issue. Lindbergh had funding. Corrigan did not. So instead of waiting, he improvised. In 1933, he scraped together about $325 and bought a worn-out 1929 Curtiss Robin. And when I say worn out, I mean this thing was barely holding together. But Corrigan didn't see a junk airplane. He saw potential. He rebuilt the engine using salvaged parts, boosted it up to around 165 horsepower, and then did something that would make most inspectors immediately nervous. He added more fuel. A lot more fuel. Extra tanks went right into the front of the cabin, which completely blocked his forward view. So, how did he see where he was going? He didn't. He leaned over and looked out the side windows. Corrigan applied for permission to fly across the Atlantic. The government took one look at the airplane and said no. Too unstable. Too dangerous. No radio. No parachute. No flotation gear. They restricted him to domestic flights only, which, for most people, would have been the end of the story, but not for Corrigan. July 17, 1938, Floyd Bennett Field, New York. Corrigan was loading 320 gallons of gasoline into a patched-up airplane with no forward visibility, and a door held shut by baling wire. His flight plan? California. His actual heading? Well, that depends on who you ask. At 5:15 in the morning, he took off, barely cleared the runway, and disappeared into a cloud bank, heading east. For the next 28 hours, he was completely alone. No radio, no contact, just a compass that was already questionable. His food? 2 chocolate bars, 2 boxes of fig bars, and a quart of water. Somewhere over the Atlantic, things got worse. Fuel started leaking into the cockpit, not a little. An inch of gasoline pooled around his feet. One spark, and that was it. So, what did Corrigan do? He grabbed a screwdriver, looked outside to avoid the exhaust, and punched a hole through the floor. At altitude, let the fuel drain out, and kept flying. After 28 hours and 13 minutes, he descended through the clouds and landed in Dublin, Ireland. Officials rushed out to meet him, and standing there, in front of a very confused crowd, Corrigan delivered one of the greatest lines in aviation history. I left New York for California, but I must have gotten mixed up in the clouds and flown the wrong way. Back in the United States, officials were furious. He had ignored restrictions, crossed the Atlantic without approval, and broke just about every rule in the book. They sent him a long list of violations and suspended his license for 14 days, which just so happened to be the exact amount of time it took for him and his airplane to return by ship. Meanwhile, the public loved him. This was the Great Depression, and here was a guy who outwitted the system with a smile. New York threw him a ticker tape parade that drew over 1 million people, even bigger than Lindbergh's. One newspaper even printed its headlines backwards to celebrate him. Corrigan leaned into it. He wrote a book, That's My Story, starred as himself in a Hollywood film, endorsed a wristwatch that ran backwards, and, for the rest of his life, he stuck to the story. It was an accident, a simple navigational error. even decades later, he never broke character. So, what really happened? Did a trained mechanic who helped build one of the most famous aircraft ever accidentally fly across the Atlantic with over 300 gallons of fuel on board and not notice for nearly a full day? Or was it one of the most brilliantly executed acts of quiet defiance aviation has ever seen? I think you already know the answer. And that wraps up another tale from aviation's stranger side. Until next time, keep your eyes on the skies.